Hello, welcome to Nonformal Education. This is your first online learning module for your professional development series. My name is Ray and I'll be leading you through several lessons throughout the course of this module, today being our first, and it's entitled A Fundamental Understanding of Your Role as a SIA After-School Educator or Mentor. In this lesson, we will cover the following topics. Number 1, defining the characteristics of nonformal education. Number 2, comparing nonformal education to formal education. And number 3, explaining your role within SIA's after-school programs and network. Our learning target for today is, I will be able to define the characteristics of nonformal education and explain the responsibilities of my role at South Asian Youth Action as a nonformal educator or mentor. Now, to better help us understand what that term nonformal education means, we're going to look at an interview from Dr. Howard Williamson. An overview of nonformal education. Dr. Howard Williamson, professor at the University of South Wales, has published well over 100 papers on youth issues and has spoken at more than 800 national and international conferences. His work is considered both groundbreaking and fundamental in the world of nonformal education. Let's listen to Dr. Williamson's thoughts on nonformal education to help build our understanding of its importance.
As a youth worker, a youth researcher, and a youth policy advisor, I spend a lot of my life thinking about the place of non-formal education and learning in the sort of repertoire of opportunities available to young people. When we talk about the history of non-formal education and learning, we're talking about a gradual but steady process and evolution from an education that was delivered largely by wise teachers standing at the front of a classroom in a school or a college or a university and filling the empty heads of young people with knowledge and skills. In the latter part of that 19th century and in most of the 20th century, we had the rise of youth organisations and the opportunity for young people to have different kinds of experiences, and this was often known as informal education or informal learning. However, gradually as time went on, we started to think about people learning accidentally and people learning more purposefully but outside of formal education, and we started to position something in the middle known as non-formal education and learning. And today we now live in a world where we talk much more about putting the learner at the centre. We've had a growing understanding theoretically of the kinds of ways in which people learn and coupled with the wider diversity of provision available to young people and the sort of experiences that maximise and optimise young people learning. And we've had growing partnerships and collaboration between traditional formal learning educational institutions such as schools and youth organisations like the Scouts or religious youth organisations and others, in the interests of youth development that helps young people to become more equipped for social, personal and occupational lives. Now, I think the beauty of non-formal education and learning as a concept is that it can move in two directions. That we have the formal educational institutions which increasingly have started to think more about putting the learner more centrally in the learning process, but the educator still remains kind of in pole position. And conversely, we've had young people having a range of accidental, experimental learning experiences where the non-formal educator can help those young people to maximise the understanding from those informal learning experiences. That is non-formal education and learning where the learner is more at the centre than the educator, but the reflection that the educator enables the learner to engage in is the way that learning is maximised. We stand in the second 20 years of the 21st century with a great opportunity to position non-formal education and learning in that important place. The challenges are going to be the quality of the experiences that we offer throughout the world, the recognition of non-formal education and learning by politicians and by funders, and ultimately the major concern is that we find ways of accrediting that learning that takes place outside of the classroom so that it increasingly carries parity of esteem with formal educational qualifications. Thank you.
Now, I realize that was a lot of information to take in all at once. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into 4 main takeaways for non-formal education. Number 1, the goals of non-formal education are for participants to acquire both common and academic knowledge. Now, in the real world, that makes a lot of sense because we want our students that are attending SIA programs to walk away with some common sense as well as some book sense when they are at a program site and they're undergoing an activity. Our second takeaway is social emotional learning is also crucial within a non-formal education setting. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at social emotional learning throughout the different modules that are going to be put up onto the platform. And on our next slide, we're going to get a brief introduction into what social emotional learning is, so don't panic. Our third takeaway is non-formal education learning is self-governing, whereas formal education learning is usually structured by the government. In other words, a classroom teacher at a daytime school running a structured classroom environment for formal education has standards and curriculum that's handed down or dictated from the government. The way that the class needs to be taught, there's very little room for wiggle in formal education. However, in non-formal education, we have the liberty to pick and choose how we wish to teach information to our students or any participants that may be present. Our final takeaway from that video is non-formal education is designed to meet the needs of heterogeneous groups. What this shows us is that our curriculum or our lesson plans that we're going to be building should be able to meet the needs of any participant that is within our classroom. If we are having a parent night and there are students or participants that are between the ages of 5 and 50, our lesson should have some opportunities for everyone to participate, everyone to learn something, and everyone to create something that they're able to walk away with. We're going to take a look at social emotional learning. Social emotional learning, SEL, requires educators to think of the ways in which participants are learning and growing socially and emotionally. The Committee for Children are pioneers on SEL development for non-formal and formal educational settings. As you watch the following video, think of the ways in which you have previously utilized SEL within your classroom. Additionally, think of ways in which you may begin to increase the amount of SEL activities your students experience.
There's a lot of talk these days about SEL, social emotional learning. But what exactly is it? Social emotional learning is the process of learning social and emotional skills, and it's just as important as learning reading or math. This learning process is most effective when it begins early and continues through high school. Social emotional skills are essential for success in school, work, and life. With SEL, students learn to manage their own emotions and behaviors, have empathy and show care and concern for others, solve problems effectively, make responsible decisions, and maintain healthy relationships. Students learn to recognize what's happening inside them and to be aware of their emotions, which helps them deal with strong emotions and impulsive behaviors. It helps them stop, take a breath, and think about a situation before acting. Students learn to identify others' emotions and perspectives, which helps them empathize and show compassion, no matter who they are or what their background is. It's not difficult to imagine how this is important in the classroom and in life. Students learn to solve problems in peaceful ways and communicate assertively about what they need or want. This helps them get along with other students and get the help they need from adults. When students learn to make responsible decisions about their lives and their future, things can turn out better. Research shows social-emotional learning makes a difference. Students who participate in SEL do better academically, have improved attitudes and behaviors, and act in delinquent or disruptive ways less often. In the United States, students with strong social-emotional competence are twice as likely to earn a college degree and nearly 50% more likely to graduate from high school and have a full-time job by age 25. Just as important, students who are socially and emotionally competent have more friends. This means they're more likely to feel connected to school and do well, and less likely to be left out or bullied. Simply put, by participating in social-emotional learning, students learn the skills to succeed in every facet of school and the rest of their lives.
We're halfway through today's lesson, so let's do a quick recap of non-formal education versus formal education. In both cases, they're designed to teach something such as a skill, knowledge, or traits to students. They also have learning targets, structures, some sort of assessments, and products. In the case of non-formal education, we want to remember that assessments look like whole class check-ins or checks for understandings, or mini check-ins with smaller groups or with a student one-on-one. In a non-formal education setting, learning is usually very self-directed. The teacher does not stand over the students or stand in front of the class leading them on. Instead, they give out a certain set of directions and students are set on their own to work through the steps given to them. As a result, it may appear messy, but it's multi-leveled because you've taken the time to design a lesson that allows multiple points of entries for learners of different levels. Non-formal education also has shorter lessons. In other words, a lesson should not take us a week or 2 weeks to complete in a non-formal education setting. Instead, every day students should reach some form of autonomous mastery over some skill, trait, or knowledge point that you have been trying to teach them. Finally, non-formal education is very project-based. We give students a set of steps, they go off on their own, and then they try to create that product through project-based learning. In formal education, on the other hand, it is mainly instructor-led. That means it's very didactic in instruction. Didactic instruction is exactly what is happening to you right now. I am here lecturing you for 12, almost 13 minutes now. You've been hearing the sound of my voice, which is not a very pleasant experience, I'm sure. When we are thinking of our experiences at SIA, we want to make sure we are staying very far away from didactic instruction. We want to also make sure we're not following the formal education forefront of having longer lessons that span across to build up to cumulative mastery. As a result, in formal education, students take sometimes 2, 3, 4 weeks to attain mastery of a particular skill. Knowing the timing of our program, you know that's impossible and it's impractical as well. So keep that in mind as you are designing your curriculum. Last but not least, for formal education, it tends to be problem-based and standards-based. There are rare occasions where non-formal education has problem-based learning occurring, as well as standards attached to the learning, but in most cases, we do tend to stick to project-based learning at SIA. As your education specialist, my role at SIA consists of helping you develop the following fundamental skills. Number 1, delivering engaging activities. Number 2, maintaining professional communication. Number 3, creating lesson plans. Number 4, designing activities connected with our local communities. Number 5, using all available resources. Number 6, having a growth mindset. Number 7, continuing to be a positive role model. Number 8, understanding your value as a member of SIA, and number 9, becoming a representative for our mission statement. If you need clarification on any of these fundamental skills, please do not hesitate in reaching out to me. We're pretty much at the end of our lesson for today, so let's look at our Lesson 1 summary. Although non-formal education is structured, it remains non-didactic and it is designed for heterogeneous groups of mixed ages, genders, and cultures. Non-formal education also requires learning targets, assessments, products, and the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and traits by its participants. You and your role at South Asian Youth Action are important and valued. Resources are available for you to continue growing as a mentor, educator, leader, and professional. Furthermore, SIA has confidence in your ability to create and facilitate engaging, rigorous, and culturally responsive lessons that have real-world connections to the participants within our program. We're just going to take a very brief look at our course progress. So lesson 1 is completed for today, but by lesson number 5 on Friday, our learning target is I will be able to assess and reflect on my mini non-formal lesson plan. What that stands to reason is that between today and Friday, you will be creating a mini non-formal lesson plan. When we get to Friday, the goal is for you to be able to take everything that you've learned in this week's module and apply it to an assessment and reflection that you will be doing of your lesson plan. I just wanted to put that on your radar so that you can understand where we are heading with the instruction that you are getting through this professional development this week. I'd like to sincerely thank everyone for completing the first lesson of Module 1, Non-Formal Education, a fundamental understanding of your role as a SIA after-school educator or mentor. Please remember to complete the corresponding quiz on Google Classroom so that you get credit for today's course. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please send them to ray.badal@sia.org and remember to CC your site director in on that email. Wishing you all a very, very wonderful day and good health. Take care.